Now, the dream of millions of people in the Middle East is a life without drama, as it were, violence, or even death. But a year ago today, the October 7th, Hamas and other Palestinian groups launched an unprecedented attack on Israel from the Gaza Strip, leading to the death of no fewer than 1,189 deaths and the abduction of 251 people, including 44 seized from the Nova Trans Music Festival and at least 74 from the kibbutz near Oz community. That's according to Israeli figures. Israel responded with a devastating military offensive in the Gaza Strip, which the health ministry in the Hamas-run enclave says has killed at least about 42,000 people as of October 4. Now the war has spilled over into neighboring Lebanon, with Israeli troops locked in violent clashes with Hezbollah fighters in the nation's south.
And for more on this, we're joined on the line by the Israeli ambassador to Nigeria, Michael Freeman. Thanks for joining us, Ambassador. 1 year into the conflict, the tensions are significantly escalated across the region with threats from Iran, Hezbollah, and other actors. How is Israel handling this escalation into what might be looking like a regional war? And what are some of the potential consequences for Israel and the Middle East?
Well, good morning. As you said, today is 1 year since the October 7th massacres, 1 year since thousands of Hamas terrorists came across the border into Israel and massacred, raped, tortured, butchered, burnt alive Israeli citizens and kidnapped 250 of them and took them back into Gaza. Since then, Israel has launched an attack on Hamas in order to retrieve those hostages, in order to ensure that this can never happen again. You know, last night, Hamas released a statement on the 1 year anniversary saying they are proud of what they did, saying that they consider it a great success, that they consider everything that's happened since a great success, and they're proud of what they did. So I think that we need to remember that when we sit here today, that we are talking about the 1,200 innocent souls that were murdered in their homes or at a dance party for doing nothing other than being Israelis.
On this war, 1 year on this war, many lives wasted on both sides of the divide. Those not even involved in the war, don't you and your government think it's time to sheath your swords and stop the mayhem?
Look, we didn't start this. Everybody needs to remember that on October the 6th last year, there was a ceasefire on our northern border and there was a ceasefire with Hamas. And I would remind all of your viewers that on October the 8th, Hezbollah joined this war for no reason other than wanting to attack Israel and no other reason than wanting to destroy Israel. This was never about Hezbollah. Israel withdrew from Lebanon in 2006. We haven't been in Lebanon and have no border dispute with Lebanon. We have no issues with Lebanon whatsoever. Hezbollah decided that they would attack Israel on October the 8th. The United Nations Security Council passed a resolution in 2006, resolution number 1701, calling for Hezbollah to withdraw from the border with Israel, to withdraw to the Litani River, and to disarm. And since then, the United Nations and the world has not done anything to ensure that Hezbollah has listened to resolution and implemented resolution 1701. And 11 and a half months, Hezbollah fired rocket after rocket after rocket, 11,000 rockets into Israel over 11 months. And the world didn't do anything. And now that Israel is fighting back, and now that Israel has said we've had enough, the world is suddenly saying it's time to stop fighting. Well, if Hezbollah will agree to UN resolution 1701, if Hezbollah will agree to go back to the resolution that was passed by the Security Council in 2006 and withdraw to the Litani River and to lay down their arms, this war will be over in the north. And if Hamas will release the hostages and will agree not to carry out further terror attacks and will lay down their arms, this war will be over in Gaza. Israel has no interest in war. We do not want this. We do not want this war. We want this war to end. We want our hostages back, and we want the 100,000 Israelis who have been homeless for a year because of the rocket fire to return to their homes. In Israel, we have internally displaced people. We have 100,000 IDPs because of the rocket fire from Hezbollah.
And speaking of foreign mediation to resolve the conflict and to mitigate the human cost of this war, with ongoing discussions around the Saudi-Israeli normalization, what are your thoughts on foreign mediation in resolving the conflict? And do you believe things like this and also the Abraham Accords can still play a significant role in bringing peace to the region?
So I think there are two different issues there. The first issue is that of international involvement in trying to bring this conflict to an end. And we would welcome anybody who can put pressure on Hamas and can put pressure on Hezbollah to listen to the international community, to say to Hezbollah, withdraw to the Litani River, implement Resolution 1701. We would welcome anybody who can put pressure on Hamas to say, agree to the ceasefire proposal that the Americans and the Israelis have put before you, release the hostages, and let's finish this with a ceasefire in the south. And I would welcome any pressure on Iran. Iran, who are ultimately the ones who are behind all of this. They are the ones who have encircled Israel with a circle of terror from the Houthis in Lebanon, from the Hamas in Gaza and the Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, as I said, and so pressure on them. On a second issue, the Abraham Accords are an example of what can happen in the region when countries get together. Israel and Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates and Morocco have signed an agreement for normalization, for peace, for relations between our people. Throughout this time, there are flights between the countries, there is tourism between the countries, there is booming international trade, because the Abraham Accords have shown that when you have a commonality, when you work together, when you are looking for the best of the region and the best not only for you, but for your children and your grandchildren, we can achieve amazing things. And I very much hope, and I very much would like to see in the future, normalization and agreements with more countries, whether that's Saudi Arabia, whether that's other countries in the region. Israel, since our founding in 1948, our Declaration of Independence says, our arm is outstretched in peace. We want peace. We want peace with our neighbors. We want peace with everybody. And that's what our aim is. And that's what we hope will come sooner rather than later.
Michael, you've painted the picture of your side, Israeli side, talking about Hamas releasing hostages, the issue with Lebanon on the border. Then you've talked about Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu, your prime minister, says they will retaliate against what Iran has done, the launch of the missiles. But America, Joe Biden is saying, do not touch the nuclear sites, otherwise we'll risk an all-out war and escalation. What will Netanyahu do? I mean, tell us or reassure us that Israel will not go against what Biden has said. And then, at the root of this problem, is it not the two-state solution? What about that?
So the root of this problem is Iran. The root of this problem is Iran that has declared its dedication to destroy Israel. Even this morning, the leader of Iran was tweeting and sending out message saying he wants to destroy the state of Israel, that that's his aim, that that's his hope, that's what he wants to do. Iran are the ones funding Hezbollah. They are funding and supporting Hamas. They are funding and supporting the Houthis. They are funding and supporting destabilization in Syria, in Iraq. They are funding and destabilization across the world, including, by the way, in Western Africa. They are also involved in West Africa and destabilizing this region. They are providing money to the various different insurgency groups in this area. So Iran is the problem. Iran is the fundamental problem and the fundamental challenge here. And it's what we need to make sure that the world understands that. And the world acts against Iran, and the world acts by putting crushing sanctions on them, to stop them and to change their activities, because they're ultimately aiming to destabilize not only Israel, not only the Middle East, but Africa and the rest of the world as well. And when a country like Iran fires nearly 200 ballistic missiles at you, then any country in the world would respond. And Israel will respond. We will respond in consultation with our allies, in consultation with America, in consultation with other friends and other allies. And we will respond in an appropriate and a proportional way to the attack that was carried out by Iran.
Ambassador Freeman, before we let you go, on the anniversary of October 7, 2023, when Hamas attacked Israel, murdered, maimed, kidnapped, sexually abused Israelis, what are your words for the Israeli people that have suffered in this conflict?
It's very difficult for me to give words to those people. Often I am the one who looks to those who have suffered and been and survived these terrible, terrible massacres, and look for their words of strength. For all Israelis, today is a very, very difficult day. My father-in-law, my wife's father, lives in the south of Israel. He's an 87-year-old man, and he spent October 7th and the days afterwards in his special bomb-proof sealed room as the rockets were falling and the terrorists were in the area. Fortunately, he survived. And, he said to us, and he said to me, he said, look, we've been through terrible things. The Jewish people have been through terrible things. Israel have been through terrible things. But together, we will survive. Together, we will get through this. And together, we will provide better days. And I hope that we will have better days for us and for our neighbors and for the whole region. And, as one of the survivors said, and all the survivors said after the Nova Festival, the Nova Party, that ultimately we will dance again.
Right. Many have gathered across. All right. I think we'll leave it there. That seems to be the much time. Oh, all right. My producer said I should go ahead. Many have gathered across the nations commemorating this day all over the world. In Indonesia, for example, 1,000 pro-Palestinian protesters outside the U.S. Embassy are demanding that America stop sending weapons to Israel. What's your sense, Michael?
Okay, it's amazing that today people would be demonstrating against Israel. I remind everybody that on October the 7th, the only thing that happened on October the 7th was Hamas massacred Jews. Hamas massacred Israelis. Hamas massacred anybody who was living. And I would remind that they massacred Africans who were in Israel on that day. They massacred Asians. They massacred Jews. They massacred Muslims. They massacred Christians. They didn't care who they were. They just needed to be inside Israel. And these people massacred on the 7th of October. All Israel was doing was defending itself that day. We certainly hadn't responded to Hamas. So anybody who's demonstrating today, in my mind, is demonstrating in favor of what happened on October the 7th. And that's just outrageous. As for those people calling for sanctions or arms embargo, it's amazing. For a year and for many years, none of these people called on Hezbollah to stop firing rockets. Nobody called on Hamas to stop attacking Israel. Nobody called on Hamas not to rape women. They didn't call on them to stop murdering babies. They didn't call on them to not burn people alive or to torture people. But as soon as Israel fights back, like any country in the world was, they say that Israel needs to stop and we need to stop Israel defending. Well, Israel won't stop defending ourselves. We won't stop reacting to this massacre and to these people who want to kill us. And we will continue until our enemies are willing to surrender and our enemies and Hamas returns the hostages, and that we can have peace on our borders, because that's ultimately what we want. And I would remind everybody once more, on the 6th of October, there was a ceasefire. On the 6th of October, Israel was inside Israel. The Palestinians were and Hamas were inside Gaza, and Hezbollah was inside Lebanon, and nobody was coming across the border. It was Hamas that changed this on October the 7th, and Hezbollah that changed this on October the 8th.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael Freeman, Israeli ambassador to Nigeria, for being here with us.